So when is there a wedding?
Not until like the spring of 27.
Okay.
We got a wedding.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get started here shortly, and I apologize, I've not had a chance to clean up the tables, but I'm hoping everyone has at their tables.
We're fine.
This table's good. We've got long-term experts here. We just want to make sure that there are enough maps. I'm looking at the Smith. Wanted to make sure you have maps. And then there should be a very brief, I'm calling it a one-pager. Cheryl, are you on?
Yeah, this is the, come to us. Come in.
All right. The problem with masks is you can't see that I'm smiling very clearly. I was hoping the mask was going to hide some facial expressions. Either way. Well, welcome everyone. It's all right. I'm gonna have to reset on my brain, and we're gonna get going. It's a pleasure to have you all here. I have desires to have us done in exactly an hour. That is the goal. We'll see if we can do that. And here's the format of what to expect in terms of agenda and all of that. So we will start by setting our norms for the discussion, and then we'll talk about how things will operate at the individual tables, and kind of format the agenda of the afternoon. And then I've been calling it a dog and pony show. It's less of a dog and pony show, more of a short presentation. Hello! And I would like to introduce a special guest. This is Lisa Bixby. You are the operations manager, correct?
Correct.
For the Wilmington Kitchen Collective. Lisa is an expert in all things food trucks. And a wonderful chef in her own right.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us. So just to talk about our norms real quick, and if these sound familiar, it's because we talk about them every time we do a public listening session or any kind of community gathering using the respect model. Every time I hope somebody's going to break in with Aretha, and nobody does. And you all don't want me doing that. That's not going to go well for anybody. All right. Respect. The R stands for respect differences in communication styles. Just recognizing that we are blessed at this congregation to have people from all walks of life, many different communication styles. Just be sensitive to that and respect everyone's individual communication style. Use empathy when listening. Be sensitive, take responsibility for what you say and feel. And the important thing here is think I statements. How do you feel? How do I feel? What do I think? We're not speaking on behalf of anyone else. We're here representing ourselves. Ponder before speaking, lines up with all of that. Examine assumptions. Probably goes without saying at this point in our common life, but we all carry with us all kinds of assumptions, and they color all sorts of different ways that we interact. So just think about those things as you're engaging, trying to understand and hear where someone else is coming from. Examine your own assumptions. Keep confidentiality. As I've said in the previous sessions, we are recording this, We are putting these videos out on YouTube, on our channel, the YouTube channel, and the website, so that the whole community within SAM can hear the conversation. And frankly, as much as I'd like to keep the presentation the same for each one, it gets shaped and tweaked and everything so we can all have the same information. But in terms of what's said at your tables, it will be shared with the larger group. So if there's something that needs to be kept within the table, say that, and I would just ask that we honor that, because occasionally that will need to happen, okay? And last, trust ambiguity, because we're not here to debate who is right or who is wrong. That's especially important with what is in front of us right now. We have so little information about what is going to happen in the future on this. There's all kinds of ambiguity about all kinds of things. Trust that. We don't have all the answers, none of us at this point. And so just trust that and we're not getting into what's right and what's wrong in this space. Okay, so in terms of how the format will work, it'll be pretty straightforward. You'll notice we've got 3 tables. At each table is a member of, actually, each one has both a member of the vestry and a member of our housing task force. This is fantastic. And the idea is the members of those 2 groups serve as both the scribe and the spokesperson. Because what is going to happen is we're going to engage in some conversation and asking a lot of questions. And we are gathering all of that information. I have about 40 pages of this right now from the first 3 sessions. All of that information from all 6 listening sessions is being collated and provided to the Housing Task Force and the vestry as we engage in the decision-making process. So what is going to happen is we'll engage in each of the questions. The scribe will take down, and then we'll report back to the whole group what is said at the table along each question, okay? We will have one question by itself. We'll report so we can gauge if there are any misunderstandings of what we're talking about. And then we'll have a series of 4 questions that we'll dig into, okay? Any questions about the format or any of that?
Could we just raise our hands if we're on the housing committee and raise our hands if we're on
Sure.
the vestry?
Yes, who's on the housing committee, the housing task force? And who is on the vestry? I was going to say Alice is both. Alice is doing double duty. So thank you all for being here. And I know Stephen Jones is actually on his way, our senior warden as well. Okay, so in front of you, you will have a couple of items. Hopefully there's a Google map view of the church. And for those of you who remember 1990s paint program, Windows 95, my 1995 self is super proud of this area. 2025 Patrick, not so much, but 1995 Patrick is like, man, you did it. But this Google map view, the goal here was to give us an idea of looking down about the area that we're talking about. Okay, so this is job aid number 1. Job aid number 2 is a one-pager that, if you will recognize, a lot of the language is essentially taken from the letter that I sent out to everyone explaining the concept and the proposal. So I wanted to have these available for you as we talk through the proposal in a little more detail. Okay, so here's what is in front of us. These conversations, quite honestly, I'll have been here 2 years in September. They've been happening since before, when I first interviewed via Zoom with the search committee. We talked a little bit about some of this. So even in my time at SAM, we've been talking about it the whole 2 years I've even known about SAM, about the parking lot. The parking lot as an asset, the parking lot as part of our mission, and the needs of the community around us. And so you recall, the vestry and I called the Housing Task Force about a year ago to start looking into a variety of different ways that we as a congregation are serving the needs of those who are experiencing poverty and housing insecurity or who are unhoused. In the short run, looking at in the medium term how we might respond, and then thinking long term. And one of the immediate long term things is our parking lot part of that discussion? On the financial side, it's been part of the discussion because it is leased out to Colonial for monthly parking. This is before my time, but my understanding is once the pandemic hit, the rates fell through the floor for parking. And so it's not exactly making us a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. And so this intersection of mission and finance we started asking the question, is the parking lot fulfilling what it needs to do as part of the mission of SAM or not? So in the midst of all that, Housing Task Force goes off and does their work to start investigating these things, asking a lot of questions, engaging all kinds of stakeholders. We've had a lot of meetings, talking with a lot of people. It's been good. Vestry has been doing their thing, and then the strategic planning group came together and they started asking very similar questions. And Carmen Thomas here is a member of the strategic planning group as well. As those conversations started coming together, we started to hear lots of things. We know the needs are significant. We know in Wilmington, if you look at the entire housing continuum, from shelter, permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, affordable housing, all of the above, there are not enough beds and units. And in fact, we just got, if you know the 2025 point-in-time count, which is the Housing Alliance goes out with a lot of volunteers and tries to count folks who are unhoused or housing insecure to gauge what is going on. We just got not only the state level data, but the city level data. And in 2025, there were 636 people experiencing homelessness in the city, 81 of whom are completely unsheltered, 555 have some type of shelter at times. So the issues are considerable, and we have long felt a call into this ministry and this work in a variety of ways at both St. Andrews and St. Matthews. As we were engaging in that, ideas kept popping up about, well, why don't we do this, and why don't we build this, and in a variety of different ways. But the thing that really kept sticking was housing first model. And housing first model is pretty well recognized across the country as a model that says, okay, you can't just house people and expect that they're going to kind of get back to normal. You have to provide them services at the same time. If they need to heal, addiction support services, mental health support services, trauma support services, all kinds of different things to help people to get back housed and get back into the workforce, all those things. So in that model, we started brainstorming what could happen. And the idea that has come up is to say, okay, well, let me preface this by saying, we know that parking is the number one issue for every group. We finally had one table at the 9:15 session that parking did not come up for them. That's the first one out of about 50 tables. So we know it's an issue. And we have a couple of ideas of how to deal with that. But we're also just going to name that right from the get-go, as that's a non-negotiable. If we end this whole thing without parking, we're probably not going to do it, right? That's a bad outcome for us. So name that for what it is. It's a known issue. We still need to talk about it because there are layers to that issue. But parking is an issue. So as we started thinking about what could be in this building, we started with a relationship with Friendship House, a relationship with the Housing Alliance, relationship with Friendship House, partnering now with Lyman Recovery. An idea started to form of taking the Empowerment Center out of the basement here, putting it in the new building so it would be a bigger space, more usable space, more effective space for them. Moving Code Purple and Code Orange out of our auditorium for a couple of reasons. One, we'd like our auditorium back. We need it for our own mission work, and frankly, like Code Purple, where we effectively can support 40 to 50 people. Last winter we had 80 to 100 on almost every night. And so the space is also not big enough for the need. So could we have permanent space for warming and cooling shelters in this space? Day center. Seemed like right after I got here, Creative Vision Factory closed a couple blocks down. And that has changed the landscape of who is around the church, how many people are around the church, because all those spaces have been quietly or very publicly shut down in this area of the city. So there is a need and a desire to have a day center as part of this. Lyman services, addiction, mental health, clinical support are desired to have be part of this, along with, if you think the historic mission and ministry of St. Matthew's, job training, education. You can start to put this together. This would be essentially an entry point for folks who are coming in off the street to get into programs, to have a safe place to live, flesh it, and to heal, and to move on to the next step. From a housing, hold on, let me get through the whole thing. From a housing perspective, we talked originally with Friendship House about additional transitional housing spaces. For those who know, they have probably 25 units over Lincoln, Union Avenue. I know because the car dealership's over there. That's how I know where that area is. Transitional housing is effective in some cases, but not all, because there's a time limit on it. 18 to 24 months is typical. Housing Alliance is recommended to have units that are permanent supportive housing, which are very much like the Hope Center. And so the idea is that for folks that can't be ready to go into housing on their own in 18 to 24 months, permanent supportive housing, there is no time limit. And so that is a more effective way to help those folks get into the pipeline safely. So those are the basic components. And as we started kind of playing this out, a crazy idea that I had that we don't know, is David, was to say, okay, the height differences between Orange and Shipley Street are such. Could we, if we know we have to exit on Orange Street, could we just dig out and excavate for the whole footprint of this building to create parking underneath it and build up? Now, we have a lot of unanswered questions with that. As Carmen and I have had a conversation, we think there's an engineering report from the 90s that may say that there may be concerns about the foundation of this building. We don't know. We haven't seen that report. I hope it exists. But also, who knows what, with the technology that is now, what that would change. The other piece is we know that Buck and I have had this conversation, that there used to be an Esso station. And so we know the dirt is contaminated. We just don't know how bad it is because we bought the property in the 40s.
It might even been in the early 50s that they bought it.
Okay.
But my memory recalls there was a freestanding building where there was some indoor parking in it, and there was bays for oil changes and things. And against where the locksmith is, there was a small building attached to that wall where the attendant stayed to pump gas. And then out front, there was an island with pumps on it. And I assume underneath that island is where the tanks would have been.
Yeah.
And whether when they did it, remember I was too young at that point in time to know what they were doing. But I don't know whether they pulled the tanks or covered them over.
And maybe it was you who said to me, there was essentially a gentleman's agreement. We were just going to pave over it and never talk about it ever again.
Yeah,
So,
I remember that.
Yeah. So either way, what you're going to hear over and over again in our time together today is there are infinitely more questions that we have answers for at this point, and that's okay. We have one question in front of us at this moment in time, and that is what we're talking about missionally aligned with who we are and our values and our mission here at Sam? And is it worth taking the next step to engage with it? Okay? Now, I'm putting that out there. I have finished this is where the pony comes in. I know it's funny. Nobody else is going to do it? Anyway, it's been a long day. So that kind of talks about the building. The other side of it is the first third of the parking lot up by Shipley Street. The idea, if you look at the map, I've got it, I colored it in green. excuse me. And the idea is to create a green space, a community space, that is for not only the community to gather. If you look around what's going on around our neighborhood, it's very dynamic. There's all kinds of people moving in. There's all kinds of people who are situating themselves here, and they can go to Market Street, but that's kind of about it in terms of places to go eat and have fellowship and do activities. And so the idea was, as we think about how we as a congregation are getting out into the community to meet new people, invite them to the church, invite them to a relationship with Jesus, invite them to faith, could we create a space that would help facilitate some of that, so that Sam becomes the place in this area where people are going to meet new people, to have a good time, have some food, and meet each other. There's a second piece, which is the financial side, and this is where Lisa's work is very important. We know that if we do this, we lose the leasing with Colonial, and it's not a ton of money, but it is, it's income that the church relies on. It supports various ministries. Could we replace that in some way? And that's where we've had conversations about the idea to bring food trucks in to both help foster that sense of community, give people good food, and generate some income to replace the parking. And I'm looking at you to make sure we're still good on the numbers, but as we did kind of the back of the napkin math, 5 to 6 food trucks with a kind of a couple different versions of how often they're there and how they pay, could not only leave us with plenty of room for gathering space and generate similar, hopefully more eventually, income as what the parking does. The other thing I'll just say, as we talk about mission with this, as we've talked about, this is part of the Wilmington Riverfront Ministries, the Wilmington Kitchen Collective is part of this ministry work. As we've talked about who these operators are for these food trucks, these are folks who give their food at the end of the night to folks on the street. These are folks who, you've had a couple of different versions of the church can give them a coupon and pay for the meal, and sometimes they just pay for the meal themselves. Like, these are folks that their values are very similar in terms of taking care of those who are vulnerable and those who are living in poverty. And so there's even this missional alignment in terms of this potential relationship as well. So I name that just because all these pieces kind of come together and say, there's a lot of alignment. So that leaves us with a couple of things. One, again, the question that's in front of us is really, because I apologize, I'm going to get ahead of myself. The other thing that's going on in the background is the mayor's homelessness task force. So as this was all going on, the mayor called a task force into place, led by Claire DeMattias. They started their work in April. They've identified a lot of issues. They have a legal responsibility to produce recommendations to the city council and to the mayor. September with preliminary recommendations, November with final recommendations. And so one of the reasons why this is coming on so quickly for us is it feels like it's coming on quickly. You're absolutely right. It is. We thought in the strategic planning group we'd be engaging in this in 12 to 18 months, something like that. But it's coming up now because the city is looking for projects to support and promote. And so when I was engaged with a conversation with Claire, sharing with her what we were thinking about, just to bounce the idea off her and see if we were on the right track, because she's been the keeper of all these conversations with stakeholders all over the city. And immediately she inquired if the congregation would be willing to be one of those recommendations from the task force. And the reason is that many of the things we're talking about, they've already identified as needs that they have to find a solution for. And there are very few stakeholders putting up solutions. So a whole lot of us putting up problems and concerns, very few solutions. So this is one of the few that has come forward. So that's why this, from a timing perspective, if it feels like we're like jumping into this, that's why. Because from long before my time, my understanding and conversation is part of the issue with Shipley Loss that took so long was the political pushback. And if we could grease the wheels early on in the process, could we not only get access to funds and support from the city early in the process, but could it make it more politically viable early on in the process? Okay. There's a lot more to say about the politics. I'm very interested to hear what you all, as we unpack some of this, have to say. But suffice it to say, the politics are also complicated. Okay, so what is in front of us is essentially, do we want to tell the world, in this case, mostly the city, that we're interested in exploring this project further, that we're interested in saying we would want to put our land in the works for a project that could address these solutions. Whether it looks like the proposal that we're talking about or something very, very different, we don't know yet. It's really as basic as, do we want to put ourselves out there that this is something we want to be considered for? That's it. So that's the question that we're going to be answering. It's essentially a yes or no to the task force. Yes, we'd like to be part of their recommendations, or no, we don't. That decision, so all the feedback and all the comments from all 6 of the sessions are going to be filtered up to the task force, the housing task force first, and the vestry as well. The housing task force will give a recommendation of the vestry, and then the vestry, as is their responsibility, roles with the canons of the church, make decisions about the property. And so the vestry will say yes or no, and then we are actually hosting the housing task force here on August 26th, and we will let them know what our decision is at that point. Okay? But I just want to make clear what the question is before us and what the decision-making process is. Okay, April, you have a quick question.
Yes, sir, I do. My question is, would this also include for low-income single people who are in transition, have either had a full-time career and had to downsize to a part-time job?
In terms of the specific housing units that are going to be in there, we don't know exactly. At the moment, we're leaning towards the permanent supportive housing and transitional housing that Friendship House would mimic and replicate what they're already doing. So there are other segments that are farther along the line that might make more sense for that cohort, but we don't know. None of this is finalized yet. So, yep, excellent. Okay. So what we're going to do now is the first question that we're going to ask at the tables, and we're going to have 3 minutes for the question and then 2 minutes for each table to respond, is what have you heard about this idea? What have you heard? What have you heard today? What have you read? We're trying to gain some clarity as to are we all listening and hearing the same thing? Are we all on the same page as to what the question is, what the proposal is? That way, if there's anything we can answer in terms of questions, we can do so before we dig in further. Cheryl, you look like you have something.
Yeah, did you want to flip the quiz?
Not yet, because those are the other questions.
And no.
I want us to get ahead of ourselves. So I'm gonna put the timer up. We'll have 3 minutes, but that is what is in front of us right now. There will be time. This is not all the concerns that we have, all the questions we have. There will be time for all that later. Right now, the focus is what have we heard? What is your understanding about the proposal? Okay? Questions about that? 3 minutes and go.
So I'm going to start.
Thank you for coming. Meeting already and put my input in. The reason I'm back here is just in case I missed something from the first meeting. I wanted to make sure that I had it, because after I left here, I was flooded with ideas. And it's still the same thing, it's my breaking it down.
Ben that Cheryl Beth is proud of you in terms of meeting facilitation. That is our time. No. Alice and Susan, do you want to, you are the experts on speaking at the microphone? You wanna get this started?
I was writing. Oh, it's okay. So, our group, What Have You Heard? There, really people didn't hear what was going on until they heard you say, Father Patrick, that there were going to be listening sessions.
Okay.
And then some people, which we noticed this morning, have been to more than one listening session, which has been really terrific. So,
Excellent. Excellent.
Anyway, they didn't really hear until they knew that they heard that there was a listening session and an opportunity to learn more, be involved, share their input, then they heard. The other things that people had heard around the community was that the parking lot would change and there might be food trucks around here. Those are the things other things that people heard. Anything, did I miss? Nope. You get it? Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan. Karen? Luckily, it's a small group, so the only reason we're really using the microphones is for the recording.
The people at our table have been to several of these and they're very knowledgeable of it, so we didn't have as much information, but they all felt that it was an excellent concept for the city and that the food trucks were a great idea.
Love it.
So, that
Good.
was us.
You know, since I'm gonna.
I've got two bad news. Okay. The first thing that we had as what we heard about it was I feel like we got a couple of ringers here. They watched last week's. They watched last week's sessions on Facebook or on social media. So they got a lot of information from watching those sessions. Comment was made that this is seen as a worthy project, and then we had individuals who had a lot of due diligence type of questions. Who's going to be responsible for the land? Who's going to put together the construction timeline? Who's going to be responsible for how things are developed? And that, my thought is, okay, right now we're at step 1. That's like step 3 or 4 out of 50 or 60.
Yeah.
So that's what we have so far.
Excellent. Hopefully, I can get the switch on. Here's the. What do you just? There we go. All right. Wonderful. Thank you all. And just a couple of pieces. One, I mentioned the parking lot, the parking as a non-negotiable. There's several other things that have come up because we're going to transition into actually asking that question: is what are our non-negotiables? So a couple things to flag in this part of the discussion. One, this is my own opinion. Take it for what it is. One of the non-negotiables that I think for us is you'll recognize if you know the inner workings of how the church operates, that the parking lot is technically owned by a separate LLC. It's called Sam's Parking Incorporated. Clever name. So we are in conversation, so that the decision-making is actually between the vestry and the parking group. Now, we've had enough conversations that we know where we stand with all of this, right? I know where things are with Danny and his board. Danny Schweers is the chairperson. But we know that coming out of this, losing title to that property is not a good thing for us, right? Putting the land up for use is one thing. Losing it in perpetuity is a bad thing. So that's one of the non-negotiables, is to say, for this to work for us, we keep title of the land, whether it's a land lease or there's a bunch of ways we could do it. That's one. Two, for me as your rector, one of the non-negotiables for me is, we don't operate this building. We don't fund the building. We're not using our endowment to put the money up to build it. Our participation in this is use of the land. That's it. And so the project manager, like, you know how passionate I am about housing. I'm not going to manage this project. That is not what my role as your rector is, and I don't want it to be my role. I enjoy being your rector. I enjoy being your pastor. So just to name that from the get, that there are a couple of these things that I didn't explicitly say, but I need to. That those are non-negotiables as we go forward. Okay. So the next portion of our time together is, now Cheryl's going to be really happy because I'm going to turn around. The next board. And see, I've learned from facilitation management practice that you don't put that up while you're talking about something else because people get distracted. Silly life having this conversation. So the next portion is going to be very, very simple. We're going to have 10 minutes to work through these 4 things. And so I will actually give you time every 2.5 minutes to encourage you to move on to the next piece. But in your table, we're going to ask each person to have at least one positive that they feel about the proposal, one concern that each of you have about the proposal. The third question is, what are your non-negotiables? On behalf of the congregation, what do you think we should say? If this happens, we say no. If this happens, we say no. What are those points for you if you're making the decision on behalf of the congregation? Okay? And then the final thing is, this is a catch-all for, we are trying to do our due diligence to lay the groundwork for what the next steps are. And so one of that is, what questions do we also need to keep asking? When this comes up for you, what other questions do you have? What other additional information do you feel like we need to make this decision and make the decisions all along the way? Because here's the piece about these non-negotiables. We've named half a dozen stakeholders so far. There are going to be many, many more. Any number of different stakeholders will be able to pull the plug on this project at any given point in time. Most notably us, because if they don't have the land, it's not going to work. So it's just to name that this, as Adele mentioned, this is step 1. It does not, saying yes at this point or no at this point does not preclude us from saying yes or no down the road. Okay? So just to name that for what it is, but we have to realize also that we're trying to gather all this information so that we can engage with all these other stakeholders in this process well. Okay, so we're gonna have 10 minutes. Yes.
In that last one, your additional questions, additional information, how would you like communication to work best for you to get your questions or answered or information out to you? What might work best?
Fantastic, yes. And we know what the situation is on the communication front. We've talked about in prior listening sessions, and I apologize. There's so many, we learned stuff at each one, trying to keep the time and not go too into the weeds, but we know that if we're going to do this, if we say yes, we have to have, whether it's Zoom, in person, something on a monthly basis to keep the congregation apprised as we go. Because once we say yes, a lot's going to start happening, or if we say yes, I should say. If. So just to name that for what it is, but yes, that would be fantastic. What's the best way to facilitate those conversations? Okay, so 10 minutes, 2.5 minutes per question, and we are off and running.
selling the congregations for the concept. The concept is, I think we need a few more nuts and bolts type of estimates. On how many people might be living here. We're only going to have 20 people. It's not worth it. And it's going to be people working in the rest of the building. It doesn't make sense to this person who's been in business all their life. And I think with more information like that to the congregation, the more they can have a positive feel for this whole. Sounds like half the guys in my fire company office, all hunters, and they all have that same.
That is 2.5 minutes. If we've now moved on to concerns, it's time to move on to concerns.
That's fair. Can I read that? You said under my question. Yes, that's a concern.
But I like what you said, viability. You know, buy it, look at
Would be able to control parking for ourselves better and our strangers. That would be a real positive.
Concerns.
Got about a minute to go.
Yeah, I think at least monthly interaction. Through the letters, Zoom meeting, in-person meetings.
Supports the feedback that we constantly refresh.
Oh, I use it.
And then that's when the liaison.
All right. That is our time.
And that goes back to representing communities where their voice is. How do you listen?
Excellent. Okay, let's gather back together. Since we have 3 tables and 3 microphones, we're going to make this easy. You all don't have to stand up at the microphone anymore. This This is a good thing. All right, so here's how we're gonna do this so that it, because there's only 3 tables and we can stay focused on each individual question versus ping ponging. We'll go around for every table to share their positives, and then we'll turn right around and go back the other way. Every table to share their concerns all the way through. Okay? So why don't we start with Susan? We're gonna start with the positives, and then we'll go over, and I'll give you guys this microphone, and then we'll go that way. Okay? Positives.
Okay, we can't be involved or learn anything unless we say yes. It's an opportunity to meet our mission, to support our church mission, to address community needs, and incorporate the community in what we do, and the coordination with the city.
All right.
For the positive, diversity in the use of the land, we're addressing the community's needs, helping the poor, and the opportunity to help entrepreneurs with their new businesses, the food trucks. That's it.
I can't spell it.
It's a hard word.
Okay. Our positives are, one, that we would be able to provide an upgrade for the community services that are happening by providing the land for the building. The question was raised about how many people would benefit from, and just that question has been an immense amount of hope.
Yeah. Do you all know how many people are served at the Empowerment Center alone every year? Because this is by far the largest empowerment center in the state of Delaware. It's like 3,000 or 4,000 people a year. So we're talking more impact than that, because the empowerment center would just be one portion. Never mind the folks around who would be part of the food trucks. I mean, it's fairly significant.
Okay, those were the 2 big things, I think.
Okay. Changing colors. We're into purple.
Okay.
Concerns.
Yeah, okay, our concerns, I've got it here. The concerns is, making the parking work. One of the issues that got raised was not only would it be the matter of our parking that's adjacent to this building being taken up by this other structure, but what if Colonial decides to ditch the parking lot across the street, and that gets developed into something? Where are we as parishioners going to park? Again, it's a different facet of the parking question. Who's responsible for the environmental testing of the land? And is that going to fall on us? Is that going to fall on somebody else in the myriad of people that are going to be involved in the project? Another concern was our legal liabilities, our legal representation in this. Who do we go to and say, hey, we need to have representation at the table?
As soon as we engage in this, we need a good attorney right now.
Yeah, right from the get-go.
Yep. That's a great catch. Okay.
Okay. Now, non-negotiables?
Nope. Moving on.
Concern?
Concerns?
All right, well, obviously parking,
Okay.
safety, liability for the church, and there's gonna be a lot more car traffic and pedestrian traffic. So there's gonna be a lot more activity,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
What you think
we
about,
hope so.
safety and,
Yeah. Yeah,
how is that gonna interfere with the church?
yeah,
Those are the
excellent, okay.
Okay, our concerns that many in our congregation are concerned, and how do we move forward as a collective when there are unresolved concerns? Not enough, another one related, not enough people from the church are involved, even with all the listening sessions, or are in support of this idea or of our larger church or of other ministries. Again, the concern being this is a big step forward, and or do we really have enough, I don't know, energy, strength, people behind us? The congregants should vote on the proposal, because that's another way of making sure they're all part of it, and that we really need to be together as a church. We need an advisory committee that includes people from the church, experts in the field, and people from the local community, to help and constantly communicate with all the congregation. There was a question, a concern or question, I don't know, could we have a community market? And then around the food trucks, are they permanent, are they year-round? Who are their potential customers? How does Sam earn money? Do we rent space? Do we get a yearly contract so we can anticipate the funds? And what about trash? That's,
Yeah, no, it's,
It's all so valid,
Yeah.
and we've discussed it somewhat, and, I don't know if anybody answered that question or not. It would be a rental fee for the food trucks. And part of the issue with food trucks is they have a hard time finding a place where they can live, their actual vehicle. So this is, our thought here is sort of a home for them, and also, so they would pay monthly rent, which would cover what you would lose from the loss of colonial parking. So there would be no money lost. They're all individually insured, liability up to $1 million, $2 million. Trash would go with them. It would almost be like we were tenants, but hopefully providing some good, in that we would also use the lot for vending, not necessarily everybody at once, but maybe taking turns, so 1 or 2 trucks is out there on a Thursday or something like that. It's all sort of an infancy stage right now, but something that we've been looking for. I've been part of the collective only for a year and a half, so I'm pretty new, but we've been looking for a parking lot for some time, and we're hopeful. We certainly understand concerns and would want to address any of those when that time is right, and explain to you sort of more in depth who we are and what we're all about. But we are the Wilmington Kitchen Collective, and the Riverfront Ministries is the operating arm of Wilmington Kitchen Collective. We are based out of Grace United Methodist, but that's not where Riverfront Ministry operates. We pretty much rent space from them, and then we have 4 kitchens, commercial kitchens, in churches in the city of Wilmington. 2 in Methodist, 2 in Presbyterian. So we're sharing the love. We're going to sort of halt at that point, because we need to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing properly. We have 38 businesses that call us home, but maybe 10 of them are food trucks, and the others are caterers and bakers and culinary artisans. So we're helping young entrepreneurs. They're not all young. Some of them are well on their way into entrepreneurship. Some of them are just starting. Some of them have been in business for a year. Some of them have never been in business. So we help them not only with the shared kitchen space, which the state of Delaware, if you sell food to anybody, you need to have a Board of Health approved kitchen in which you work out of. But if you were to go out there as a business and try to rent one on your own, it would cost way too much money. So we came up with a model where they can be shared. So we're helping them not only with that, which is a big piece to make your business successful, but we help them with funding and learning and back office support and mentoring, and our doors are open, people, they're in and out all the time, just asking little questions. My background is in the culinary field for 35 years in the food and beverage industry, and I retired in 2017 because I got grumpy with my business. But I wasn't ready to retire. I was ready to make a difference, and I think I'm helping a little bit, and we're helping a little bit. We're a tiny little team of 3. Our pastor, who just left for her next calling, is friends with Patrick, which is how we got connected, and so this would be a great thing, but we want to make sure it works for everybody, not just us. So, you know.
And one of the first things that comes to my mind is, okay, how can we then, as we move forward, leverage our kitchen so that we can support the park?
We were just talking about that.
Okay.
Because regardless of what happens here, we've had conversations going on, Chelsea and I were talking for 6 months ago, even a year, about our kitchen.
We have a waiting list of over 50.
Really?
We can only take so many businesses based on what the Board of Health tells us for storage purposes. So we have a very long waiting list. We made a conscious decision not to, I'm not saying that we won't, but not to, we just opened our 4th kitchen, and like I briefly said, we want to make sure that we're managing the businesses that we have before it's like taking on too much and not being able to handle it. So that's where we are right now, but we have an opportunity here with this kitchen that we're talking about, seeing how we can make it beneficial for all of us. So,
Do you use the Jefferson Street Center over at Hanover?
we don't, but we have talked to Hanover. Chelsea started a consulting, because rather than keep taking on more kitchens, we want to help other churches do what we're doing.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are right now. We are waiting, actively interviewing to fill her position, and we're sort of on hold with all of that until that happens. But that is something that we are helping other local churches figure out to do as well, so that these folks that are out there waiting to find a kitchen maybe can. So I'm sorry, I don't want to take up any more.
Should we go through non-negotiables? We'll go around the horn and then back for final questions. Okay, so Susan, non-negotiables?
Parking accessibility came up. The maintaining of the title, the insurance and the legalities, making sure that everybody involved has a mutual interest, shared objectives, and shared responsibilities around the legal and the insurance matters. And that we work with a broad range of partners, including, as best as we can get them engaged, local residents, the people who do live around here.
Next. Okay, Karen.
Our non-negotiables, we must generate income.
Okay.
Parking, obviously.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Income to
Income to
replace,
us.
income to replace what the parking lot is,
Yes.
or on top of that?
Well, income to replace that and more. I mean, we certainly, any money that comes in is gonna benefit the church.
Well, but there's a difference between, it's non-negotiable, we can't do this if we don't at least replicate what we're already getting.
Right.
It's a different non-negotiable, we say we need to make more money on top of that.
Right.
Those are two different things, that's why.
They are. Okay, so at least
At least
what we lost.
Perfect.
More.
Yeah.
And we can't lose the congregation.
I hope it helps.
We're
trying. As we're thinking about this missional, the concern about the additional traffic, this is a missional decision. We're trying to generate more traffic. We're trying to generate more awareness in the community, more ways for people to intersect with our mission and who we are. So, yeah, this is actually, look, I'm a church planter at heart. This is a church planting again for us, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, excellent. Adele.
Our one non-negotiable,
Father Patrick cannot be the liaison of the construction team.
The person that negotiates. Oh.
All right. Now you're going to questions.
We don't have any unless I missed some.
No?
The other one was about,
It's not.
The other one was around communication modalities or something you had asked. So the other suggestion would be, in addition to email and social, is to actually have a space here, like maybe up there on that wall, where we actually have the project plans and we have what's happening, and we'd have a space where people could actually put down their well, not just find stuff out, but actually write down their thoughts and, hey, what about this? Like, so it would actually be a visual, so when people came to church,
Yep.
they'd have the opportunity to see what's going on.
That's fantastic. Excellent, excellent. Aaron, additional questions, information?
More information about the multiple sources of food. Someone wanted to know about veterinarian and animal shelter services for the folks that,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of homeless have critters. A lot of homeless have critters, so
Yep.
they wanted to be able to have someone to help look after their critters. Someone thinks there needs to be a liaison between the church and the new building and the people in the building. So, you know, if somebody has, it doesn't have to be anything
Yeah.
major, but just someone to say, hey, you know, we need to know this, because there's somebody that can help us. And it needs not to be you or DL.
Well, absolutely.
It could be me.
Yep.
You know. Yeah,
We're always interested in volunteers.
I mean, that's, you know,
Yeah.
I could do that. People want to know additional information on the plans and the designs. And then what kind of services will be available in this building? And can we have any input on what the services will be included?
That is an absolute yes. In fact, I'll have a couple comments on that, but yes, because none of this is fun.
Because I think, for me, when I think of the homeless, I think, you know, how wonderful would it be to be able to just wash your hair and get it cut? You know, it would be wonderful to have an area there where those kinds of things could happen. So that would be, and then I have this other thing.
Okay.
Could we approach BPG and see if maybe they want to donate that additional parking? Over in the corner, you know? I mean, maybe out of the kindness of their heart, they might relent if we beg them properly.
I have many, I have some comments on the BPG piece. We're lost.
Anyway.
Great. Susan?
Okay, our major question was, how do we really maintain our interest and control of our property if we're not putting any money into the project? So, for example, what if we don't like what's going on in the building, but we're not the people that are funding any of the thing in the building? How do we have input and, you know, those kinds of things? What if people add a service and none of us like it, or things are going on that we don't prefer? And I'm just gonna, this was not brought up at the table by the group, but I'm gonna build on what Karen said. I come from a belief system, I believe that everybody is a partner until they actually entirely walk away from the table. And so I believe that I have a belief that somewhere in DPG, there are people that are going to work with us and are going to be partners with us, and that it's important that we become their friends and their partners, and we find out what's the like, where we can find things that matter to both of us. And I think that we do that with everybody in the community. We're surrounded by all sorts of little for-profit businesses. So, you know, I don't know what could be our relationship with the Grand Opera House or whatever. I assume that they're all going to be we're gonna find a way, and that's how I can, we need to approach them all, because there's good people everywhere.
There are.
Mhm. Excellent. A couple of thoughts. One, a deep thanks and gratitude for not only the volume of what we have up here, but the thoughtfulness that has gone into this. Part of this engagement for us is understanding that even if we say yes now, not only do we have the option of saying no down the road, but we know that this is going to be a big part of our common life together very quickly. Whether it's going out and talking to potential partners, whether it is engaging in the political sphere, there's all sorts of things that immediately come up. And so recognizing all of that up front and having honest conversations about it is really, really critical. With regard to Adele and Cheryl, I saw the look in your eye about making sure I wasn't the construction liaison. I think naming what, particularly for DL and I, what we are doing and what we are not doing early on, making sure there's a firewall. Because any way you slice it, the working of the church cannot be subsumed by that, right? So we're still going to have people who need pastoral care. We still have funerals, we still have hospital visits, we still have the administrative functions of the church. We haven't miraculously created another 80 hours a week for the two of us to do all these other things. It's going to take the community figuring out how to do that. And so naming that up front, we've been thinking of it. I'm glad you are too. The other thing is, so BPG, one, I have a dream that they have a self-interest of participating in this with that plot of land. It may be a dream that never comes to fulfillment. I don't know. I think I can make a case that it is in their self-interest for the relationship with the community, given all the money that has gone to them from the city, given all the different ways that the city has supported them. I want to make that case. I don't know where we'll get to. The bottom line is they're a for-profit business. I don't know that our values are going to align in this. We don't know. I will also say that we have reached out in seeking a meeting and have not heard back yet. I don't know if or when that will happen, but I know based on the conversations with the task force that they're going to be an important stakeholder in any of this, any way you slice it. So we'll see what happens. I will say that Stephen, David, and I, David Clauser, so Stephen's the senior warden, David's the junior warden. We do have a meeting with 9th Street Development, which is kind of an offshoot of BPG, to have a conversation, and this is going to happen next week. Not anything concrete, but to talk about the idea and see what their feedback is, right? As part of this gathering of information so we have a better understanding of what the development world thinks about this. And lastly, the services piece. So I didn't have a chance to talk about Cheyenne Miller and I. Cheyenne runs the Homes campaign. She's an organizer with Network Delaware. And as we talked about this, she immediately said, man, imagine if there's childcare in there. Imagine all these other services. Here's what I will say about what services are going to be there. One, we are not the experts. We are relying, I had a great conversation with Rachel Stucker and Sonia Starr from the Housing Alliance the other day. They have all kinds of data and all kinds of models. Many of our partners in this work, both in Wilmington and in the wider community, especially Philadelphia, all kinds of people doing this work and have all kinds of different models. So nothing is set in stone, but also we have all kinds of different templates that we can look at, and we can put that against the new data that's just starting to come out. One of the things that's coming out from this task force with the city is they're starting to get better data, right? This is the first time I've seen Wilmington-specific data and the point-in-time count. So we're hoping to match what's in the data and in the listening sessions with these stakeholders down the road. So we're going to have a lot of input. The thing that I would mention on the control as to there was a church that I was in conversation with that wanted to do something similar with their parking lot, and they had all the way down to an agreement with a developer to do it. But the church did something very smart. They wanted to do retail at the bottom of the building and housing above. It's a very similar model to Shipley Lofts. and you start to generate income that way. But the church said, we will have final say as to what retail businesses go in there, because we do not want tobacco shop and a liquor shop and THC shop down the road. Whatever, pick your problematic, morally problematic business. You can't just stick those in there. And so that was a deal breaker for the developer, because it was a deal breaker for the church. So there are ways to do it and do it well. I think that's where one of the big things coming out of this for us is to understand that I feel like this is antithetical to my sermon this morning, so I apologize, but we're relying on God right now to help guide us in what the right next step is. And we'll just continue following that path. And at some point, where we're going will present itself. But there are places we're going to have control, there's places we won't have control. But we're going to try to maintain control where we can. The last thing I just want to mention in terms of the concern about the decision making. So this is very unique to how the Episcopal Church operates, in that the vestry is the elected and duly canonically responsible body for making decisions about property and finances on behalf of the church. So that's why the decision at this stage of the game rests with them. How that decision goes forward, we are in open discussion about, because according to the canons, the Episcopal Church does not operate in a congregationalist model where we all come together and vote and make a decision on X, Y, or Z. That's not actually the way we're structured. But we've talked about that if we say yes now, and we get to the point of having everything concrete in front of us, and we are saying yes or no with the final decision, do we want to hold not only listening sessions, but a congregational vote? I can make an argument either way. What I want to share as your rector is just to be mindful that in our polity, that's not actually how the Episcopal Church is governed. And so if the decision is made to not do that, it's not outside of how the church is technically governed. And I just want to make that clear. We have people from so many different backgrounds and experiences with the Episcopal Church. That's unique to how the Episcopal Church governs itself. And so naming that, and I'll say, I had a conversation with one of the original St. Andrews members after the listening sessions last weekend. And giving feedback of gratitude that we're having these listening sessions, because and this experience for this person was similar to what I've had in other places, where big decisions are made where there's no input at all. And so we're trying to find this balance between making sure that we gain an actual community consensus and making the best decision that we can. But I also want us to be really honest about how the Episcopal Church is actually organized and governed, because that's why you'll see things like the diocese decides to sell this church or this, these decisions. There are very specific places in the canons and the rules as to how these decisions are made. But we're trying to do our best to make sure that we have a robust conversation and the community has a lot of input. But we may or may not actually have a vote at the end. It's up for discussion because it's not typically done in the Episcopal Church. Okay? So I just want to be transparent about that, because I don't want us to make a decision at this stage of the game and then have an expectation that we may or may not meet down the road. Okay? Are there questions about that? Because we don't talk a lot about the governance of the church, right? It's not something we talk a whole heck of a lot about. And I'm looking around the room at folks who have been Episcopalians for 80-something years. 82. And some of us who have been Episcopalians less than a year.
6 months.
Right. And we all have different experiences. Different Episcopal churches do differently. So are there questions about the polity piece, which is not the sexiest topic of conversation, but can be really important in a moment like this? Doc, you look like you are holding something back, or?
Can I make a statement on the parking lot?
Absolutely.
I'm doing this, I'm going to use the microphone because I had the opportunity to serve on Andrew's property and was the chairman Andrew's property, I don't know if it's changed, is the owner of the parking lot. And we had borrowed money from the church to do different projects over there, buy additional land, paving and things like that. And the money we collected was returned to the church to offset the mortgage that they hold, church holds on Andrew's property. The goal of Andrew's property was to have it someday, that parking lot, not be dependent on income, but to be used for the church. For weddings, you come to a wedding, you can't find a parking spot. Weekday funerals, it's difficult. Social events, you can't get in the church until after 6 because it's tied up. Weekday services, weekday things. The goal was to have that parking lot to be used for our parishioners to park their cars when they were coming to church, whether to go to the office, a midday service. That's one of the things that we need to look at to keep in the back of our minds. We don't want to lose control of that parking lot to say that, well, you can't go in there because there's only 4 spaces left because it's taken up, just as it is now.
Yep.
With strangers parking in the lot.
Right.
That can well be used for parishioners. And I think that we don't want to, in the long future, don't want to have another stumbling block to chase parishioners away.
Right.
We also, you know what COVID did to not only our congregation, but to a lot of congregations, that they're not recovering. And we don't want to get into that again. And then with that, I'll close my statement and thank you.
Absolutely. Karen? Yes.
If we can resolve the issue with the parking lot, and then we would be able to have a lot of people park there, couldn't we utilize this building more to generate revenue?
Yes.
I mean, this is an amazing building, and there are people, I'm sure that would want to rent out this big space, and if we had the parking lot to support those people, then that could also generate some revenue for us, so.
Yeah, and Buck, thank you for sharing that, because that's the first time I've actually heard what the original intention and mission was for the parking lot. Apropos of nothing, but I've been keeping tabs when I show up about 7 o'clock on Sunday morning. How many spaces are actually available at that point? And usually there's anywhere from 10 to about 15 cars that are already parked there. And so this is part of a bigger conversation of, we have no use of the parking lot during the week, during the day. I have long wanted to do a lunch, a fellowship lunch on like Wednesday at lunchtime. No place for anybody to park, right? And so there's, knowing that we need to get to a good place around parking is important, but what I hear, Buck, is deeper too of what is the mission of the church, and we can't lose things that are going to help us grow and be sustainable and make it easy for people to get here and to achieve something else. And I think we want to achieve something that's a win for everybody, but that's why it's more part of the non-negotiables, right? Yep. So, okay. Thank you all very much. I apologize. I know we're a little bit over time. So next steps, like I said, all of this will be collated, provided to the Housing Task Force and the vestry, with gratitude for all of your time and input. And the Housing Task Force will meet at the beginning of August, make their recommendation to the vestry, and then the vestry will review everything and make their decision on August the 20th. Okay? And if you have a desire to participate in a future listening session, the next one is Wednesday via Zoom at 6 p.m. And the last one will be Wednesday the 30th at 10 a.m. here. And if you have additional thoughts, anything that went on that didn't make its mind to the board either because it came up afterwards or something that wasn't shared at the table, please feel free to email me or any of the wardens. We would still people. Thank you all very much.
Thank